So although it might take a little bit longer to get that approval for your PGWP if you apply online, just think about the bonus that you will get. There are some other points that I want to make. These are specifically for students that might have recently completed their studies or for those who have graduated from school, as well as for those who are almost finished with their studies. You have up to 180 days from the time that you have completed your studies to apply for your post-graduation work permit. A post-graduation work permit, or PGWP, is a one-time permit that allows you to work in Canada for a period of time once you have completed your studies. Please note that a post-graduation permit cannot be extended unless there are certain instances. One of those instances is if the government decides to implement a temporary policy that allows an extension on your work permit. There are some things that you need to ensure that you have in place so that you can successfully apply for your PGWP. One, ensure that you can show that you have attended and completed your studies. One document that shows that you have successfully completed your studies is your letter of completion. You also need to show your transcript. When applying online for a post-graduation work permit, you may use your unofficial transcript. If you choose to go to the border to apply for your post-graduation work permit, it is highly recommended that you have an official transcript received from your institution in a sealed envelope. You need also a copy of your study permit. And of course, you need to have the prescribed amount to pay to have that application processed. And at this point, that is 255 Canadian dollars. Another important piece of document that you may need is a letter showing that you took an authorized break from school. And this is generally in the case when your school has more than 2 semesters or 2 terms in the academic year. You might be wondering if it is that you can work full-time once you have completed your studies. And the answer to this question is yes. Be sure that you are officially on that authorized break, and then you can continue to work full-time. But as soon as you receive your letter of completion, you need to stop working immediately until you have applied for your post-graduation work permit. After you have successfully submitted that application and received that confirmation of receipt, then you may go ahead and resume working full-time. You may resume working full-time until you get a decision on your PGWP application. I mentioned earlier that you can do flag polling, that is, go to the border to apply for your post-graduation work permit. This is something that I did, and I didn't have any major issues when I went to the border. Bear in mind that you're putting yourself at greater scrutiny by the officers at the border. When you apply online, there are certain questions that the immigration officer will not generally ask you unless they need to request additional documents from you. However, while at the border, the officers can ask you any questions and you should be prepared to answer them. If they're not satisfied with your answers, then they may issue a deportation order or deny your PGWP application. So I want to share an experience with you. While I was a student, I was focused on completing my studies and to ensure that I did well. But as soon as I got closer to finishing my studies, I began to think about my next step. For me, that was a period that was filled with a lot of anxiety. Throughout all my immigration experiences, I felt like the processes were very daunting. I had to ensure that I had everything in place to make a perfect application that would guarantee an approval. I began to wonder if I was going to get that approval. And because of that, I felt even more secure as a student than when I finished my studies. So if you are feeling a little bit anxious, I believe that is a normal feeling because you don't know what your next steps will be and what the decision of the immigration officer will be. But what I want to encourage you is to just remain hopeful, remain positive, and believe that everything will work out for you. I know that it is at this point that you're looking to find a full-time job. Bear in mind that if you don't get a full-time job right away, it is actually a little bit okay, simply because the time that you spend working part-time, as long as it is a skill job, will add up and add to the hours that you need to ensure that you have 1 full year of Canadian work experience. The important thing is to find a skilled job. With a skill job, you're putting yourself in a position to get the necessary Canadian work experience that you need to eventually apply for PR. The duration of a post-graduation work permit may vary, and this depends on the length of your program. So if you studied in a program that on paper says 2 years, then it is likely that you will get a 3 years post-graduation work permit. And hear this. And even if you don't get that full-time skill job right away, just keep working while you do your job search to ensure that you get the right job for you, the skilled job that will ensure that you're in a better position so that when you apply for your permanent residency, it will be approved. Everything might not work out the way that you want it to, but just ensure that you keep pushing towards the goal that you had when you initially came here or even before you came here, and ensure that you keep doing all that you need to do to get to the place that you want to go. And ultimately, I believe that is permanent residency and eventually to become a Canadian citizen. In this video, my focus is that you should apply for your PGWP online, and there is a benefit to doing that right now. If you apply online for your PGWP right now, because IRCC is experiencing a backlog of applications, there is a benefit if you apply for your PGWP online. And here's the benefit. Say, for example, you study a 1-year program. As long as it is a PGWP eligible program that you completed, you have 1 year in which you will get a work permit to work temporarily in Canada. But because of the backlog right now, if you apply online for your PGWP, say they take 4 months to process your PGWP application, you will technically have 4 more months as bonus months to work towards the eligibility for you to apply for your permanent residency. After submitting your application online for your post-graduation work permit, anytime that you work qualifies towards your work experience that you need to apply for your permanent residency. So although it might take a little bit longer to get that approval for your PGWP if you apply online, just think about the bonus that you will get. I am not in any way trying to discourage people from going to the border. You will hear some scary stories, and I can understand why persons, especially immigration consultants or lawyers, will tell you not to go to the border to apply for your post-graduation work permit. I have done that. I went to the border 2 times, technically, and the applications that I submitted at the border were approved with no real challenges. When I say no real challenges, I mean not too many questions from the immigration officers, as well as 2 instances while coming back from the US side of the border. We got a little pushback from the officer that was responsible for letting us back into Canada, basically asking us why we didn't apply online or continue to wait for that online application to be processed, and basically stating that they're not here or they're not at the border for our convenience. Thank you for making it through Nicky's Lens, and I'll see you in the next video.